When it comes to rookie drafts, everybody's after that diamond in the rough, the rookie stud in round 3, and we have 5 potential sleeper candidates for you in the NFL draft. And we're starting at quarterback with LSU's Garrett Nussmeier. So looking at the stats up on there, I've gone straight back to 2024 because we had an injury-riddled 2025. Why are you feeling that Garrett Nussmeier, outside of Simpson and Mendoza, is our best pick for some QB fantasy glory?
I think first of all, look, let's get the elephant in the room out the way. This is a bad quarterback class. I'm not a big Simpson believer. I think Mendoza is good, but calling him QB3 in this class, I think he'd probably been QB7 2 years ago. He's not an elite prospect. This is pure dart throw territory. And it's just a guy that there's something about him that I like. And I've not 100% been able to put my finger on it. I think he's tough. He's clearly played through injuries both last year, but 2024, he wasn't 100% healthy. And I think that showed. He's willing to take some risks. He's willing to push the ball downfield, which I was a big fan of. I think he's got that cerebral quality. I think he can process. He can progress through reads. There's enough there that if I'm taking a dart throw on a quarterback in this class at cost, I think Nussmeier is the best risk versus reward option.
I mean, we spoke about on one of our previous shows, if a QB doesn't get drafted on day one, their chances of success are very, very slim. And we're not seeing him going on day one, are we? We've only had 3 QBs since 2015 that have been fantasy relevant when drafted outside of day one. Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy is the anomaly of all anomalies when it comes to QB success as well. So yeah, as you say, it doesn't look highly likely, but there are some really nice things to look at for him. So he does seem to handle pressure well. His placement on fades at times. So there's sometimes you see a really great catch come from a passive put down. Now, is that him finding that perfect window, or has he spent a lot of 2025 being bailed out by wide receivers?
Probably a little bit of both. LSU's had some decent receivers over the years. There's probably a little bit of him trusting the receivers and putting the ball in plays where he's allowing them to go and make plays and go and get the ball. I just think that he's got that cerebral quality that I think he is going to be a good backup in this league, in that he seems like a nice guy. His teammates love him. He's good in the kind of the locker room. He'll be good in the QB room. And I think that we could see him be that, a bit like Spencer Rattler is now, a bit like Davis Mills is now, where it's like, yes, he's a backup, but he could potentially be a bridge quarterback. He could potentially be a guy that maybe in the right situation, if we give him the right opportunity, he could be a starter down the road. So that's where I guess my interest level in him is, rather than me sitting here banging the table saying this guy needs to go in the first round, he's going to be a star. That's not the case at all. But there's a slim opportunity, and in Superflex leagues, I'm always willing to roster a guy that I think has got a chance of starting down the road, and that's where I sit with Nussmeier.
So we're saying we're going to have a player then that we're going to have opportunities to have him as a streaming QB. Where would that put him at cost for you in a rookie draft?
That's a really good question. I'd probably be comfortable with him third round. I mean, at the moment, I'm just pulled up my ranks. I've got him as my 19th overall player. I wouldn't take him at the back end of the second, just because I don't think you have to take him at the back end of the second. I think you can probably get him early third. But it's at the point where all those day one, day two wide receivers have gone, and I'm starting to pivot towards what I always class as volume-based positions. So running back, quarterback, and I'm kind of tend to be shifting away from wide receiver, because I'm just looking for a guy that if he gets an opportunity to start, I could stream him, or I can pivot off him for hopefully a profit. Can I draft him for a third? If he starts 6 games, can I sell him off for 2/3? That's kind of my dream scenario with someone like Nussmeier.
If you are not already, please do take a moment to subscribe, to like, to give us a share. We will be with you all throughout the off-season, rookie content into tail end of Dynasty season, and then redraft best ball, every single thing in between as well. Next up, Rich, you have got a wide receiver for us, and a player that, to be completely honest, I'd not paid too much attention to until you put him on the list for us to talk about today. But a really interesting wide receiver prospect when we're looking outside of the names we're all quite familiar with at this stage.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The way I approach this rookie season, I don't watch a lot of college. I just don't have the time during the season to consume college as much as I do the NFL. So I come to this fresh when it gets to kind of January, and I always go film before numbers, and I try to ignore any other content. I try not to read other people's opinions because I want to form my own opinions. And I watched the tape and I was like, I really like this guy. Like, yes, he's smaller school, but he is the type of smaller school prospect that he is clearly the best player on the field. And whenever there's a small school question, that's always my one thing. And then I plug in the numbers, I go away and look at the rookie model, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I like the film. The rookie model really likes him. This is a guy that comes in around the 70th percentile prospect, despite the fact that he's probably going to be a late third round pick. And then it's just like the more and more I watched him, I was like, this guy has got the frame. His footwork at his size is phenomenal. And I think he's a natural route runner. And I will always bang the table for two things: people that pop in my rookie model and people that can separate and are natural route runners. And I think he ticks both of those boxes. So yeah, I'm really, really excited about what he could be. And I think in a league that's shifting more towards bigger bodied outside receivers, in a draft that we've maybe got 1.5, I'm interested in taking a dart throw on Ted Hurst. And yeah, he's I don't believe in my guys. But he's turning into, I guess, as close as I can get to my guy this year, because I really like every single part of his game.
One of the points I've got on the screen there is a bit of a cliche, I suppose, of every single smaller school wide receiver, and that's they're going to need that time to adjust and the step up in the quality and everything. I think it's the other point there that is my biggest concern, because you're right, for a guy of his size, he moves fantastically. But my impression is he doesn't then use that size enough at the catch point as well as he could, maybe.
No, I totally get it. He's not, considering, he's, what is he, 6'4", 6'4.5", something like that. Like, he's not the most physical receiver for his size. But I think with his route running, he doesn't need to be. Like, I'm almost, it would be nice if he was, a physical guy that can dominate smaller corners. But he's a good enough route runner. He can create enough separation that he doesn't need to be physical at the catch point in order to still perform. And I also think there's an element of Georgia State weren't wanting him to be physical. They basically, there's very few clips of him blocking, because Georgia State basically like, right, you go stand over there. You don't have to block. We don't, when you get hurt, your entire offense will come and find you when it's a pass play. That's going to need to change in the NFL. But yeah, I don't have a huge concern because he can separate. If he couldn't separate, it would be a massive concern. But you don't need to win contested catches when you're 2 yards open.
When all is said and done, is probably this draft class wide receiver is going to be ranked around wide receiver 10 to 12-ish. Would you agree with that? And if so, where would you be, once again, where would you expect him to come off the board in our rookie drafts?
Yes, I mean, he's my QB 9 in my current ranks. I'd be comfortable taking him mid-second. Again, obviously we'll see where kind of ADP falls and stuff like that. But based on current ranks, based on current ADP, I think you could potentially get him at a late second. What I would say is caveat: there are some people that love him just like I do. He does seem to be a bit of a darling to some people. So there could be a world where his ranking, his value does start to creep up.
I think for his value in rookie drafts as well, he'll probably be, as with several of these wide receivers, be a beneficiary in ADP of the weaker running back class as well, and people probably wanting to more take their dart throws on the wide receivers than the running backs. Well, we're going to give a couple of those running back options for later in the draft in a moment as well. But yeah, another really exciting player to keep an eye out. So if you are new to this, go and watch a little bit of his highlight reels on YouTube. It's definitely worth a little look after you finish watching the entirety of this, though, obviously. Next up, we move into tight end. And when we did our tight end show a couple of weeks ago, we had Max Klare as our tight end through when we looked at this. So a player that we are probably a little bit higher than most on. I think my worry is every single thing I read about Max Klare, including the Fantasy Sanctuary Rookie Guide, one word that crops up constantly about every single thing he does is good. Everything seems to be good at that. He can do this. He's capable of doing that. And we're not seeing those. So I think, although we're saying for us tight end 3 here, similar to Nussmeier, being third in the class is not necessarily what it has been in previous years, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a guy that's third in this class. The tight end 3 in class last year was Harold Fannin, who's a top 4 or 5 Dynasty tight ends now. You've got to adjust your preconceptions based on the class, but I don't necessarily see that as a massive bad thing. I think, look, yes, he's not the world-class athlete. He's not, Colston Loveland. He's not a phenomenal wide tight end, but he's competent enough that he can line up in line. This isn't going to be a guy that gets Dalton Kincaid where he can only be on the field for 30% of the snaps because he can't block. Like, he is competent enough in that area, but he's not going to be, George Kittle or, one of these more physical tight ends that's winning at the point of attack in the run game. He's going to be more a nuanced blocker. He's going to be used on double teams. He's going to be used on whams and traps and things like that, where you can put him in advantageous situations he can hold up, but he's not going to win one-on-one versus a defensive end at the point of attack in an outside run. In the passing game, I think he's better than good. I think he is a nuanced, subtle route runner that can create separation. He understands where to settle against zone. I think he will be a QB's best friend. And I think what's not being said about him enough is that this is a guy that shared the offense with Jeremiah Smith, who's maybe the best wide receiver prospect we've seen since Jamar Chase, and Connell Tate, who's going to go, top 10 in the draft? Like, he was the third option at best. At times, he wasn't even the third option. And yet he was still able to put up decent numbers. Yes, he's not, eye-popping, but 41 receptions, 420 yards for an Ohio State team that had that volume of quality receiver, that's really nice. So do I think he's going to be a top 6 Dynasty tight end? No, probably not. But could he end up in the right situation, having a Dalton Schultz type season or a Jake Ferguson where, we're never excited about him, but he's good enough that in the right situation with a quarterback that leans into the tight end position, he could see enough volume to be fantasy relevant. And at his cost, that's absolutely all I'm looking to do is there's a chance that he could be fantasy relevant rather than, this is a guy that's going to struggle to get on the field kind of thing.
And you're exactly right about the numbers. When we've spoken about Carnell Tate, we've done that with the don't worry too much about production. Is in a higher state wide receiver, you have to compete for every single target you get in that offense. You've got to copy and paste that exact same thing with tight end, haven't you, with Max Klare? Looking at where he could be going then, Ed's favourite landing spot for him when we did our tight end show was he felt he's someone that could do very well to sit in what we keep saying it might be the last season for Travis Kelce. Maybe it is this season, maybe it's not. But a tight end who went round 3 of the draft, so round 3 in the actual NFL draft when he was drafted, Max Klare could find himself there as well. Now I know I'm going to the absolute top draw if it comes to comparisons of round 3 wide tight ends who then make it big. But could you see him sitting behind something like that for a year and then potentially giving us that bump once he's learned his craft a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think tight end landing spots, I really struggle with kind of landing spot analysis because I think as a community, we do it quite badly in terms of, I think there's a lot of nuance to landing spots. I think we tend to look at depth charts and be like, oh, there's no one ahead of him, so that's a good landing spot, or oh, he's got two people ahead of him, it's a bad landing spot, without understanding the nuance of it. But even more so with tight end, because there is so many different flavors of tight end with the NFL, the way they're pivoting towards heavier sets, the difference between a Y and an F, and a guy that is going to expect to line up in line 60, 70% of the time to a guy that, like Mark Andrews, can play 70% of his snaps out of the slot and stuff like that. Like, there's so much difference there and nuance that it's difficult to say that's a good landing spot, because actually it could turn out to be a bad one. Maybe the Chiefs, we're lusting after the replacement for Travis Kelce, but maybe the Chiefs turn around and go, actually, no tight end we bring in is going to be Travis Kelce. So what we're going to get is we're going to get a Y who's going to line up in line, help us in the run game, and we're going to pivot more to 11 personnel. And Rashee Rice is going to play out of the slot, and he's going to be the Travis Kelce replacement, rather than a tight end being the Travis Kelce replacement. So yeah, like I get what you're saying. In an ideal scenario, could he replace Travis Kelce in 2027 and be the tight end on a great offense that we know utilizes that type of role? Yeah, absolutely. He could do that on 32 NFL teams, quite frankly. But I'd cautious and kind of warn people against sort of looking at, right, Travis Kelce's been amazing, Max Clare's the heir apparent, therefore he's going to be amazing in that situation.
I mean, I spent a couple of years with Noah Gray on my taxi squad, and that didn't work out. So yeah, there are lots of these players we could have these high hopes for, and then we never think about again unless we are unwilling to drop them from our rosters. Landing spot is something I think we talk about more than most when it comes to running backs, though, and who people land in and what we're looking at here. Damon Claiborne is one of those options we'll be looking at later in our drafts, and we know that running back outside of Love, there's a lot of question marks. It feels much more of a running back class of a couple of years ago than the wealth of kind of riches we had last year with our running backs. What is it about Claiborne that stands out to you as a potential sleeper pick at running back?
I think when you're looking for dart throws at running back, I'm primarily looking at two things in terms of explosive ability and receiving usage, because I think that those are the paths to success. But whenever you're looking for dart throws, you need to kind of caveat it with range of outcomes. And it's like, do I expect Claiborne to become a usable fantasy option? No, absolutely not. I think there's probably 90% chance that he sits on your taxi squad for 2 years and then you end up dropping him when you need somebody new. But that 10% chance could be phenomenal. Like, he is lightning quick, ran a 4.37 40. His agility is phenomenal. I think him in space is fantastic. The way that he can kind of manipulate defenders around blocks in the screen game and things like that is fantastic. He has a really weird running style, which I think helps keep defenders slightly off balance. And he is a natural kind of playmaker as such. So if he landed in the dream situation, if he landed in a role where, he can have 60% of the snaps and there's a bigger back who's going to carry the early down work between the 20s, and he can just come in, on some early downs, but primarily passing downs, high value touches, he could be, phenomenal. We've seen it with someone like Devon Achane, not the same player, not comparing them, but that sort of ceiling where he doesn't need 25 touches in a game to be fantasy relevant. He can have a 20-point plus PPR game off 12 touches. That's Claiborne. But the realistic outcome is that he can't, and he just ends up being the next Keaton Mitchell or Brashard Smith, who looks amazing in 3 or 4 touches a game, but the NFL team can't trust him enough to give him any more than that.
And that trust could vanish immediately when you're thinking the draft capital he's going to get in the NFL draft. If that stat of 7 fumbles as he had last year, if we get even a sniff of that, a player that's been drafted as low as he will be, they will lose their opportunity. We will never hear of them again at all if that creeps in. The other side of it is that he's got that kick return value, and that is, for a running back, that's the way to keep yourself ace on a roster until you get the opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a bit of a freak thing this last year. Like, he hadn't had a fumble in his first 3 years at Wake Forest. So yes, the fumbling was definitely a problem on film this last year. But he had, 229 carries in 2024 and didn't fumble once. So is it a cause, isn't effect? I don't know. But it's definitely something you want to keep an eye on for sure.
When we're thinking then about the chance of it happening, and you said we're looking potentially about 10% chance with those sleepers hitting. The really interesting stat that I saw last week was that when we're looking at our later round picks, so specifically running backs and wide receivers drafted in round 3 according to ADP of rookie drafts over the last 10 years, only 17% of those have ever had a single season where they finishes at 36 or higher in their position. So that's just one season of fantasy relevance. That really is how much of a dart throw these are. You've got less than 20% chance of getting a usable season out of them. And even then, are you going to be confident enough to play them? I think the reason that Puka Nacua gets thrown about so much is obviously the recency of the fact of Puka Nacua being a draft steal. But for every Puka Nacua, there are hundreds of players we can't remember the names of that we drafted in round 3. And that will continue to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, so it's kind of skewed things a little bit recently. If you remove Tyreek Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Puka Nacua, the previous 15 years have produced one fantasy relevant season from a day 3 wide receiver. Like, yes, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, they are dynasty changing picks if you nail them and you get lucky enough to draft them in the 3rd round. But don't expect to see one of those every year. Don't expect that you're good enough to be able to identify them, because I'd need to go and run the numbers, but I think you're probably talking about 200 to 1 chance of nailing that pick, quite frankly.
I mean, the fact that every team is passing on those players 5 or 6 times show that they're not confident of just spotting those,
including the team that drafted them. Like, let's not, if the Rams knew what Puka Nacua would have been, I'm sure they would have drafted him in the 1st or 2nd rounds. Like, you can't tell me that they were willing to let 31 other NFL teams have 5 bites at the cherry of drafting him if they were convinced that he was going to be what he was.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's incredible value. Yes, they look like geniuses for getting that, but they didn't think this is what he would be, because if they did, they would have drafted him a hell of a lot earlier.
This is the 3rd year we have had you on to do our rookie sleepers at this time of year, Rich. And so it's become a bit of a tradition here at the Think Tank. What is also becoming a bit of a tradition is the final player I present to you is a player I've become infatuated by during my research process. And I'll talk about loads during this stage and then potentially never, ever, ever mention again, because nothing ever comes of them. This year, that player for me is Adam Randall. He ticks some boxes for me. Firstly, he is a massive human being, and I'm fascinated by massive human beings who run into other human beings. Secondly, he's got the pass catch we spoke about for a running back, and then there's that little quirk of the fact he's only played 1 season as a running back as he was converted from wide receiver. So when I'm trying to sell myself a narrative of where are my range of outcomes, where could a ceiling be, or where could be a player that I never bother with ever again in round 3, I know I'm going to be trying to take lots of Adam Randall. And I also know I'll be panicking towards the end of round 2 because I think other people are as high on him as I am, and they won't be bothered in the slightest. What are your thoughts on Adam Randall at this stage?
I really like him as a dart throw. Like, as I said, if you're going to take dart throws, to me, it needs to be volume-based positions, running back, quarterback. And as I said earlier, if I'm looking for dart throws at running back, I'm looking for explosive ability and receiving ability. And Randall has both of those in spades. He's obviously a difficult evaluation because he didn't play, he played wide receiver for 3 years and then transitioned to running back. But yes, there are some issues around pad height, some, footwork issues, some of the more nuanced elements of the position. But the athleticism is there, the talent is there. And yeah, it may take a little bit of time, but I'm intrigued because this is a guy that NFL teams are, offenses are looking to be more multiple. They're looking to have different situations, different personnel packages that they can run the same plays from and kind of keep defenses off balance. Randall's that type of player. You can go out in a 32 personnel, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs, and look like you're going to be, pounding the ball down the middle, and then suddenly your tight ends flex out wide. Randall can flex out wide, and suddenly you got 4 wide receivers on the field. That is the type of ability he has. So I am genuinely fascinated to see what he could become. But I think, again, we need to cover out range of outcomes. The chances are it doesn't work out, but that's where, we're getting him as a 3rd round pick. I think if you're sneaking him up into the 2nd, I'd caution against that, because I think that the idea of, dart throws is that they are exactly that, dart throws, and you're not driving them up too much to the point where you're wasting capital and spending a competent pick on a dart throw type guy.
Looking at his weaknesses, a lot of it comes from his inexperienced position as well. So his running style, getting to the line of scrimmage, isn't quite right. He's a little bit too upright. He can be a bit clunky with his feet. He's quite indecisive when he's not able to see that clear gap, and his technique isn't always the greatest. Well, all of those are coachable things, and all of those could be coached, and we can see that. But we've also only seen him play in your position. We don't know. Is he coachable to improve those things as well? So, yeah, all of those weaknesses could continue to be weaknesses, and why we never say anything. Some of those weaknesses could start to be ironed out. We see it. But yeah, Adam Randall for me is that player I'd like to take the darts throw on. He will certainly be occupying a lot of taxi squads, I feel, for me next season. Well, huge thank you for coming on, Rich. If people want to find the rest of your content from yourself and Tom, where should they go?
Yeah, come find us on YouTube. Come find us on Twitter. We're at the FF Sanctuary. Rookie Guide is out, free to all members, silver tier and above. Come find us there. Plenty of YouTube content. There's everything you could ever need from a fantasy perspective.
And I'm not just saying this because we've got Rich on, but the Rookie Guide genuinely is a fantastic piece of work that Sanctuary produces. We're not saying because Rich is on. We like to get Rich on because of the caliber of that content that he produces. So, yeah, absolutely go and get yourself involved. The FF Sanctuary on X, YouTube, and check out all the stuff that Rich and Tom are putting out. Well, thank you very much, Rich. As always, I look forward to hopefully being involved in some drafts with you throughout the off-season. From a Jets point of view, to finish us off, who are you hoping your Jets take in the draft? I saw that you'd done a mock draft where you'd fixed the Jets the other day on X.
Yeah, of course. Always trade down, get extra draft capital. Anyone but a quarterback, anyone but Ty Simpson, to be honest. If we can grab John Tyson, I'd be delighted. But yeah, I look, everyone always says this. I'd love to move down from 2 because I don't think there's a player worth it. But when there's a player not worth it, no one's going to trade up, are they? So, yeah, maybe we can move back to the Giants or something like that, add a 2nd rounder next year. I'd be very happy with that. Just give us more capital in what's going to be a pretty phenomenal 2027 class.
Well, amazing. Thank you very much, Rich. That's all from me. It's all from Rich, and we will see you the other side of the NFL draft for our draft react shows, and I'm sure some mock draft shows as well. So that's all from me. Ta-ta and farewell.